Today, we're going to take you through the Framework AI as a Service platform. The goal of this video is to introduce you to the platform's core components, which are chat, the workshop, the learning portal, and the help center, and explain its value as a unified AI hub. In today's digital landscape, your team is likely already using AI, but are they using it securely, effectively, efficiently? Is everyone using the best tool for their specific job? Managing this can all feel chaotic. That's why we adopted the Framework AI platform powered by HATS AI. It's not another AI model. It's your company's central hub for accessing, managing, and building with all the best AI models on the market. In this video, we'll take a quick tour of the platform's main areas: the chat interface for daily tasks, the workshop for building automations and agents, the integrated help center, and the learning portal. Let's start with the chat. This is what most people already have some familiarity with. So this is where your team spends a lot of their day-to-day iterative, tasks and interactive tasks. It looks simple, but its power lies in its flexibility. So one of the first things I want to highlight, and this is a really key difference to other Gen AI tools that you may have used, is instead of being locked into one generative AI or LLM model, you can choose the best one for the specific job or task you're doing, and you can switch between them in each new chat. So for complex reasoning, you might choose GPT-5. For creative writing or handling long documents, you may choose Claude. The platform manages all the access and all the back-end billing across all the models in one place. And this is not all of the models available, by the way. There are many more in here. So here's some of the featured models show up at the top. Down here, it shows categories that help you understand, based on the task I'm doing, do I need, an advanced model with high abilities? Do I need a model that works really well with tools? And I'll talk about tools in a little bit. Do I need one that excels at reasoning? Do I need one that just returns answers fast? Or I need one that's has the best way to process images or generate images. And just to illustrate what I was talking about, I'm going to click View All Models and take you through a quick scroll here. I'm not going to cover this, but all of the major models are in here. And it's extensive. As you can see, you can also search them right here. And this is one of the key value adds we love, because different models excel at different things and perform different tasks better. And as you'll see, when we get into the workshop and you're building automations, within automations and agents, you can leverage multiple models for each step to pick the one that's best for the task at hand. So just like you're used to, of course, you can come in here and you can ask chat whatever question that's helpful today. So let's just say I need to find a company's address. Find company address or framework IT. One of the things I want to highlight at this point is that there's a lot of tools built into this. So one of the things you'll commonly do when you're putting in chat requests is select a tool. If you go to show all tools, you're going to see some options pop up here. This video is not meant to be educational or training, by the way, so I'm not going to cover what all of these do. But if you need to do internet search, you're going to want to select one of these, either AI-based internet search tools, Google search, etc. You can actually select multiple models for an inquiry or a prompt. So let's just say for this, I would select these 3 models. Before I move on, I just want to highlight something else. There are a lot of available integrations to other applications that your team may be using here. They could come into play as you are conducting tasks that require integration or as you're building workflows. And this list of integrations is growing rapidly all the time. So I've selected these 3. I'm going to go ahead and hit X, close the box. You see right here, I have 3 of 3 selected tools, and I'll submit my prompt. And just like you're used to with generative AI, it's going to do its thing and pull together the information. Also, right here, as you see, it shows me what model I'm using, and I could have switched the model if I realized I really should be using another model for this prompt or search. As it's doing the work, you might see some information pop up here that indicates that it's doing tool calls, etc. Those tool calls, again, are, those tools I selected. It's tapping into Google search, Perplexity, and other AI search tools that I had selected. So it didn't return the right address because there actually is a Framework Computer Inc. in San Francisco. I should have specified my prompt that I was looking for the company in Chicago, or I could have put in the URL or something that would have helped narrow it down. So that's, kind of chat in a nutshell. A lot of people are familiar with this. They've used ChatGPT, they've used Claude, they've used one of these models before. Really, here you have a gateway to all the models. That's the key thing to understand. And you can access all of these models with one simplified, cost-effective subscription instead of having to subscribe per user to a bunch of different models and not being able to leverage in a more complex workflow or agent the strengths of these various models. So now what I would like to kind of switch over and show you is, where do you go from here? How does this kind of go more advanced than what you might have experienced, done, and used with a chat interface? And that's where we get into the workshop. The workshop is really powerful. Here is where you can see a list of community automations that are already built. So the community using this platform is building a lot of automations, and some people like to just share automations they've built here. And I won't go through all of these extensively. There are many here already, but I'm just going to really quick, let's see, go ahead and pick one of my favorites. So this is a common task in a business. You need to write a standard operating procedure for a process. Well, somebody's already built an automation for that. That's an SOP writer. So I could search SOP. I click on this automation, or we just call these apps, so to speak, within here. And in this, this is like an input window. You think of it like Gen AI, where you kind of have an input window or a prompt. And here's where you would drop in your directions. For the sake of time on this demo video, I'm not going to kind of describe a process in depth, but I'll just say, write an SOP for onboarding a new employee. Now, obviously, you're going to want to feed it more details that are specific to your company if you're using this in a real life use case. But just to illustrate, I'll click generate. And then over here on the right, you're going to see it start writing a standard operating procedure. Okay. So again, this is some of the kind of built-in community shared automations. Framework will also be sharing some automations that we've built for ourselves to our client tenants. But where this gets really powerful is you can create your own automations, workflows, or agents within the platform. Framework can also, as a professional service, help you understand the value of automating certain processes that might be costly for your organization. And we can help also build the automations, workflows, and agents. But you have free reign to run with this and build yourself as well. So I'll just kind of show you what this builder looks like. I'll admit, when you first come into this blank screen, it might feel intimidating or a lot, and there's, don't know where to start. Again, this is not a training video. We will provide more training on this. This is just meant to illustrate the capabilities within the platform. And I'm going to show you a tool in a moment that's probably going to blow your mind, because I think it's incredibly, incredibly powerful. But within the platform, they have the ability right from a chat window to kick off building a workflow or an automation or an agent. So I'll get to that in a moment. But before I do, just want to show you some basic things in here. So right now, I have a basic prompt input window here, and I would start writing kind of like you would prompt in a chat, the prompts and steps for a particular task I want to automate. Now, there's a couple neat things built into this. Prompts, templates. So I want to describe like the persona of this automation, right? What's its kind of like style ultimately? I want to feed it examples to train. I might select this. I'm going to define what the output should look like. I could select this. I'm going to clarify its role. So I'm going to start with the role and say your job is to write sales proposals for an engineering firm. Now, again, I would prompt more thoroughly than this in the training that we will provide. You will see prompt coaching, etc. The success with AI is very contingent on having the right prompts. But again, I just want to illustrate here. So I gave it a job, right? And I could add another prompt and again, use a prompt template. This task is very important because we're a professional engineering firm with high-end clients, and we care deeply about the quality of our delivery or what have you. Then I can create inputs as well. So an input would be something that you're feeding this automation to help it do its job. Now, an input could be a user provided input, right? A short answer, a paragraph, a drop-down, multiple choice. Could be a file that we're going to have the user upload for each request. It could be a URL. Constants are things that will stay in this workflow no matter how many times you use it. This is commonly used for training documentation, showing it examples, maybe feeding it some information that's very specific about your company, etc. So if I was building this, I might put some inputs, some constants that are examples of our existing proposals. I might feed it the template so it knows the structure. And then in one of my prompts in the workflow itself, I'm going to say, you are going to replicate the format, the structure, and the style in this input example I provided. So user input, let's just say, for example, I'm going to select paragraph, and I'm going to put scope of work, and I'm just going to say, write a quick summary of the scope of work. So again, this is one of the user provided inputs. And now you just saw it put scope of work over here, and there's this user input over here. Now, this really shouldn't go here in the workflow. I'll maybe add a prompt and say, you're going to use the scope of work, which the user will input, to write a more thorough, professional scope of work that follows the structure and style outlined in this example. That's where I might create an input and say, okay, I'm going to attach a file or many examples. For example, I can do multiple files and have it train on that. For sake of time today, again, I'm not going to do that. And then we can add steps. So we can add another prompt step. Okay, I'm going to zoom out a little here, right? And in this step, I could say, you know what? Gemini Pro is doing this first one for whatever reason. And, I think it's, maybe say it's ChatGPT. Okay, and that, I want Claude to do the editing. Claude's really great at writing. So Claude, sorry, not to say Claude. Take the output from prompt one up here, and enhance the writing and clean up the formatting to mirror this structure. Okay. So this can get really complicated. You can have the tree off to lots of places, etc. Right? It does take a little bit of getting the hang of, a little bit of trial and error to build these automations successfully, but they're really powerful. And I am going to show you an example of one we built for writing statements of work, right? So it was very similar to the example I just gave. This is not in production, but we're in final testing. I just want to give you a quick preview of the way these things can look. I'm not going to cover what all this is doing because, again, this is not a training material. But essentially, this workflow is taking all various inputs that go in to writing a statement of work, period of performance, work requirements, schedules and milestones, other requirements, etc., on and on and on. It's also taking a detailed worksheet that our engineering team submits on the back end, fills out, that has a lot of very specific details about that project. Drafting all of the various elements of it using inputs provided by the sales engineer and the engineering team. And then it's turning around, drafting a document. We're specifying exactly how we want it structured. And then finally, the final step is it's actually spitting out a link to download the actual Word document with this full, pretty much client-facing ready statement of work. This is something that takes quite a bit of time on our end if we're drafting it from scratch or even off our own templates. This automation cuts that time down to a tiny fraction of what it would take. So that's just one of many, many ideas of where you can go with building automations and agents. I wish I had more time in this video to cover far more use cases, but we can certainly help you think about craft use cases and help you build them ultimately at the end of the day as well. So that is the quick preview, I guess, of the workshop, right? Again, so much more you could share there. But one of the other things I highlighted was, and this is my favorite feature so far. New features are coming out every week on this platform, but this one I was really thrilled about. They released a tool. It's right here called the Workshop Assistant. So the workshop, again, is where you're building automations and whatnot. This Workshop Assistant will start building that automation or that workflow for you. So I could tell it, again, I'm not going to give it as thorough of a prompt as I should to get a really quality automation started here. For sake of time, I'll just give you a quick illustration of this. I want to build a workflow that takes inputs including client name, labor calculator, build of materials, and drafts a thorough, professional statement of work. I'm just going to do that for now. Again, I would write a much more thorough prompt, and I'm going to go ahead and submit it with that workshop tool selected just to show you kind of what happens here. Now, it may ask me some questions before it does that. If it does, that's fine. But what it's going to actually do is walk through the logic it needs, and it's going to start building that whole stream in the workflow, in the workshop for you. And then you can go in there and edit, tweak, and test as needed. So this is an incredible tool. It can save you a lot of time, and it can expedite your adoption of using the workshop to build really powerful automations and agents that save a lot of time for your team. So as you can imagine, this is why I was super thrilled and excited when this tool came out. It does take a moment, apologize for that, but this is doing something pretty complex, of course, right? It's tapping into the back-end builder capabilities and building something really powerful, and it's doing it all very rapidly for us. And getting it, typically, I would say, 80, 90% of the way there. Again, to get the final output and state you want it in, you probably are going to have to go in, make some tweaks and adjustments, of course, but this does a lot of the heavy lifting up front for you. So it's just really, really neat tool. As this continues to build, I do want to poke over and just show you the Help Center. So in the Help Center, you can search for articles in here and find useful information. And then over here, you can click to speak to LarkMeeper. That's the AI chatbot support. And you can ask it a question, and it has some really powerful capabilities. It's trained on the entire backend knowledge base of this platform. Ask it any question. I'm really impressed with its responses. So let's say I want to understand what one of the integrations can do. So just say, what can the Slack integration do? And of course, this AI agent, pretty quickly, is going to search its entire knowledge base, and it's going to come back and lay out what the automate or integration in its current state can do. All right, so meanwhile, this has done more work. It's created now and is linking us to the statement of work generator. So this takes us back over. Now it's showing you the front end of it, the front end that you actually experience when you're using it. Over on the left, you've got your user provided inputs, like I showed in the example earlier. You put those things in, we directed it on, you click generate, it generates it. Now, again, this wouldn't generate the statement of work you're looking for. I didn't give it enough direction. I didn't give it examples. I didn't give it structure. I didn't give it anything. But it does build, and the more thoroughly you prompt it, the more thoroughly it builds. Now look at this. With the very little direction I gave it, look at all the detailed instruction it gave in this workflow. Pretty pretty awesome, pretty impressive. And that's without me, again, giving it a whole lot of instruction parameters. So finally, the last thing I'll just kind of quickly show you is the learning portal. This is very helpful. I will say there's so much to learn about AI to use it effectively, and tips and tricks on prompting and whatnot. So we have this HATS AI Champion certification that'll help you get started. Framework also has, of course, some very specific tips, tricks, and other kind of training resources. We'll be doing office hours and all sorts of other things to help you get up and kind of crawl, walk, run with this powerful technology. So it's really, really neat. Another neat thing about the platform is, aside from the Help Center I highlighted, should have called this out, right in the chat itself, you can ask it questions about it, and about, its capabilities. You can ask it for help crafting a better prompt. You can tell it, hey, I'm working on this workflow. This step is not working well. Here's what I want to do with this step. Here's kind of the outcome I'm looking for. Help me write a better prompt, for example. But I could also, again, ask it questions about the platform itself. So I could say, what does the integration with Outlook allow me to do? Now, since I'm referencing an integration in the chat, not in the Help Center chatbot, but in my actual Gen AI chat window, if you're asking it questions about integration, you do want to note, you just want to quickly select that tool so it knows to kind of communicate with that tool and say, hey, what can you do? So it's going to kind of tap into that tool, and it's going to come back and summarize what it can do with that tool for us. And again, attaching that tool, et cetera, is only relevant if you're asking it what it's capable of doing with a particular tool, like the example I gave. If I just wanted to maybe ask in general, what it can do, I could say, what can the HATS AI platform do in general? Provide a summary of overall capabilities and give me a list of use cases for, let's just say you work in accounting, you want accounting. While that's generating, just want to kind of reiterate, this is not just a Gen AI tool, right? Yeah, you've probably had the experience of playing with some of those. This is far more powerful than that. Obviously, you have chat. You can tap into all the models with a simple subscription with very simple consolidated flat rate billing. You can have as many users as you want in the company. It goes off credits instead of a per user charge, which is really important for adoption. When it's a per user charge, it's hard to stomach rolling that out to everybody in the company. That adds up quickly. With this type of model, you get a pool of credit share across the company. You can give it to everybody that you want to have access to the platform. Aside from generative AI, chat kind of functions, that workshop, we just scratched the surface of it. It's incredible. There's existing automations already built. You can copy those community automations and tweak them to your needs. You can build automations from scratch. You can use that HATS workshop tool to get you started on building automations from scratch. Framework, of course, can come in from a consulting standpoint and also help you automate processes, save time, improve the quality of work, etc. So that's, again, quick overview. There's so much more I'd love to show you, but this is just a quick introduction to the platform. Thank you and have a wonderful day.